Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session at Druid Summit. My name is Kundan. Today, I'll be talking about how Druid has become a crucial member of our data platform and how this is helping us to serve our high concurrency, real-time, low latency data requirements in our games. I hope you'll enjoy this session. So this is me. My name is Kundan Jha. I'm SD3 in data engineering team at Games 24/7. I have most of my experience in building data pipelines, data platforms, working with different query engines and distributed systems. So the agenda for today's talk is that I'll start with a brief introduction of my organization, Games 24/7, followed by a brief overview of our data platform called DAS. And we'll see what kind of data requirements that DAS needs to serve for fraud analytics. And then we'll have a look how Druid is helping us to achieve this and solve this kind of challenges that we are facing in this kind of use cases. And then we'll share the results with you of this implementation. And we'll see that what are the future steps for Druid at our organization Games 24/7. And finally, we'll have our question and answer session. So about Games 24/7. So my organization Games 24/7 is one of the leading gaming platform offering multiple games in both casual and skill games categories. One of our most popular games is Rummy Circle, and Rummy Circle is an online multiplayer game for playing Rummy. For those who have no idea what Rummy is, so Rummy is a card-based game where players have to build a sequence or set of sequence from a deck of cards by picking a card or by discarding it, and ultimately the winners will be the one who finishes this sequence, melts all the cards in their hand. So Rummy is quite popular in this part, means in India, and Rummy Circle is one of the largest online platform for playing Rummy. Our another offering is My 11 Circle. My 11 Circle is our fantasy sports game, and in fantasy sports, what happens is that people compete with one another, building their own fantasy teams, and they build these teams from pool of players which will be available on the platform and for a real sporting event. And depending on the performance, how these players perform in the real sporting event, fantasy points will be awarded to the players. And the virtual teams, the fantasy teams having the most number of fantasy points will be the winners in this game. So My 11 Circle was launched 2 years back and has done extremely well to become one of India's most loved fantasy sports platform. Ultimate Games is our casual games studio. Ultimate Games is producing casual games for our global audience, and it has produced many games like KT's Pet Haven, Pet Solitaire, Word Solitaire, and many more games. So this is the story of data at Games 24/7. Games 24/7, our platform, our fantasy platform, My 11 Circle, is handling hundreds of thousands of concurrent users. It is having there are already millions of teams that have been created on our fantasy platform. Rummy Circle, on the other hand, is one of the most popular card games. It generates a lot of data and it ends up consuming most of it for the analysis. Our casual games are also very much popular. Ultimate Teen Patti is one of the most highest grossing games in Play Store in India. Our user base is very fast and is like ever growing. And these all stats are just to give you a glimpse that how much of data and what kind of data that we are dealing with. So this is the journey of data at Games 24/7. So the data begins with our users playing their games on their devices on our gaming application, on our platform. So each activity that user does on the gaming application will generate an event, and there are multiple services which will deal with these events. Something like whenever a click is made on the gaming application, a clickstream service will handle that. A deposit event will, similarly gameplay events will be handled by gameplay services. So different services dealing with different events. Now these raw events will be further processed and enriched by our enrichment services to add further meta info on top of that raw events. And once this additional meta info is added, these events are published to our Kafka for the specific topics, in the specific topics for the specific services. So something like if login and registration like events will be gathered in acquisition topic, a bonus related event will be gathered in the bonus topic. And this Kafka becomes our central data store for streaming data. So whoever wants to consume this data can directly consume from this layer of Kafka, this enriched Kafka. So there are multiple consumers over here. Like we have our internal backend services, which consumes this data to feed their application. We have taxonomy services, create ETL pipelines and other real-time pipelines. And then we have a data platform. Now this is called DaaS, Data as a Service. And in the next slide, I'll be talking about it a bit. So what DaaS is? So DaaS is a platform for accessing data in the most efficient and convenient way. So so let's say that a team needs a data. So the simplest way to access data would be to go to the DaaS platform and create a job on it. And in that job, the team will configure that what are the metrics, what are the requirements that they have, what are the data points that they need. And once this is configured, DaaS will create and will render this input from the user. And based on this input from the user, a job will be created. And DaaS will share a REST endpoint with the team, or created this job on the DaaS. Now, this endpoint can be used for accessing data directly from DaaS. Means they just have to put the parameters that is required for the job, and DaaS will return the data as a response. Now, benefit of having a platform like DaaS is that the team or the user who is using DaaS does not needs to know where the data is stored, in which format data is stored, or which query engine to use. And even they don't need to write queries, means these all parts are eliminated and will be handled by DaaS. The other benefits that DaaS provides is that gradually now we are moving towards a platform-based approach from our pipelines-based approach. And with DaaS, the real-time data access has become very simple. Also, there is a part called data catalog, which will be holding, or we can say it is the central repository of the organization. So currently in our DaaS, we have hundreds of metrics. So a user can browse through these metrics and pick the metrics that they require and then create a job in DaaS. So this helps us in streamline the logic across the organization about a particular metric. And also we'll see how DaaS is helping us to reduce redundant processing of data. Okay, so this is the comparison between our legacy pipeline-based approach and a platform-based data approach. So in a pipeline-based approach, so this was our Kafka, means in the previous slides, we have seen that our data was finally enriched and then written to a Kafka topic. Now, what we used to do is that we used to write Spark streaming jobs that would read from Kafka and write data on S3 buckets, maybe partitioned further on in JSON or in Parquet formats. Now, whenever data, one of the data engineers, or what they would do is that they would pick, according to the requirement, they would pick the query engine, the suitable query engine, and process that data or write set of queries and create a pipeline for them, for the team. So every time used to come, a data engineer had to be involved to create a pipeline for that requirement. And once that data is made available, the teams would use their own set of internal tools to create their own set of metrics. Problem over here is that because each team is working in their own silos, that means a very simple metrics, a very common metrics like count of games. So for a user, how many games that user has played, that same metric could be processed or could be calculated by different teams. They are not aware that one of the team is already generating. So this process is redundant. So we identified these things, and this was the motivation behind building DAS. So in a platform like DAS, a user, what they would do is from a team would use API services or UI services of DAS to configure a job. Now, to configure a job, that means there would be a set of already predefined metrics that are already available that we may have created. And if they do not find which is they are looking for, they can use their own self-serve portal and create their own metrics. Now, once they have configured these metrics for a job, they would submit this requirement to DAS. Now, DAS, depending on the SLA and the metric requirement, would pick what kind of requirement would it be. Would it be a real time? Now, depending on this, DAS will automatically pick a query engine. And once that query engine is decided, the next step that DAS will do is it will prepare a query for that query engine. Now, once all of these is done, DAS will generate an information within it. Means for this particular job, this query engine to be used, and this is the query for that particular job, and will return an endpoint to the user. So the user, whenever they need to access this data or pull this data, they would call that REST endpoint, and that data would be made available. So this is what DAS is. DAS is the simplest way to access a data. Now, let's see that how DAS is helping to provide data that is helpful in fraud analysis. So, we have a dedicated team called risk team, which deals with fraud users. So because real money is involved in our games, so it is very much obvious that people would try to take benefit, use unethical means to generate money from these games. So our fraud teams constantly tries to identify this kind of users and eliminate this or block them from our platform. So what risk team does is they have an engine called risk rule engine, which is event-based trigger. That means in a game, we have multiple events, like from login to deposit to withdrawal, and when a game ends, there is a settlement event. So based on set of rules, risk team can configure to analyze each user on events. That means, let's say, for example, awarded a bonus. That bonus may be for bringing a friend on board or playing certain number of games. So risk team has created a set of rules that every time is granted a bonus, this set of rules should be executed against that user to analyze that user, whether it falls under the fraud category or not. If they find it positive, they mark that user for further analysis. So this risk rule engine is a event-based system. And this is how they are doing it. They are creating a set of rules, and they are analyzing each user against that set of rules. And why they are doing this? So the most critical and most important part is that it helps maintain a healthy environment in our game. It helps build our players that they are playing in a fair play environment. And next thing is that it also helps us save a lot of money. But to build a system like this comes with their own set of challenges. So to have a real-time system, comes is that it should be a very low latency uh, system. And why this has to be a real-time system? So let's say that a user has done a settlement. That means at this point the game has ended and the winning amount is credited to game wallet. Now, the if the user is a fraud user or any normal user, what they would try to do is withdraw that amount immediately after this has been credited to their game wallet. So if you had to block a fraud user from withdrawing that amount, this decision had to be made between these and these events. And this can happen in a matter of seconds. So this system has to be, a very quick responsive system. So our decision-making system can have their breathing space, can mark and can identify this kind of users and mark them or block them from withdrawing the amount which they might have won by cheating. Also, this risk system will send a lot of requests to our system, because this system can compare set of users. That means one user will be compared to other users while the game is going on. So let's say that even if we compare one winner user, let's say that we have a game of 6 players, that 6 players are playing a game, and we have, even if one winner is compared against the rest of the users, we may have 5 different combinations for each game. In our peak hours, we have hundreds of games that are going on. That means hundreds of games multiplied by 5 requests for each game. So these sums up to the number that we may get. The thing is that this system has to be always online, means it has to be 24/7 running system. So high availability is very important. And also the number of requests that we will get is not linear, means during we may reach 30,000 requests per minute, but during off-peak hours, like during mornings or late in the night, these requests will not be that much. So the system has to be auto-scalable. Also, during our festive season or during a the number of users on board will increase drastically, and so the number of games, and so the number of requests also. So this is very much highly scalable system. So the solution that we found that exactly fit our requirement was in Druid. So let's see how. So to start with, I'll give a brief overview of what Druid is. So Druid is an online analytical database for real-time use cases. So the basic architecture of Druid is something like that. It has major components: the master servers, which have coordinator and overload processes, which will look after data movement and task respectively. And then we have our query servers, in which our broker will actually receive the queries from client, and depending on means having information from Zookeeper, it will among the real-time segments and historical segments, and the response from these data nodes will be returned back to the broker, and it will return back to the client. These are the 3 major segments, along with the external dependencies of meta storage and Zookeeper and deep storage. So deep storage is for storing data for backup purposes. Okay, so now let's see how Druid is implemented at Games 24/7. So our use case is something like this, that Risk Rule Engine has created a job in DAS, and let's say that requirement is something like this, that this job has been configured that whenever this job is called, DAS amount of withdrawal that user has made. Why? So there may be scenarios where find some way to generate bonus. Maybe bring a friend on board, and some bonus may get generated. So if following a pattern like they are constantly generating bonus and constantly withdrawing it, and if that mark reaches a threshold, that user may be flagged for a potential fraud analysis. So let's say that this kind of rule is configured over here, and risk dash that I'll send a job ID like this, I'll send the user ID, and I'll send the interval that the time that needs to be scanned, and then return a response having how much amount has been withdrawn by this user within these time interval, right? And how this constantly reading our Kafka topics. So whenever a bonus event comes in, the user ID in that event will be there. So this user dash along with the other input parameters. Now dash will make a request to our Druid. Dash make a request over HTTP to Druid, and over the load balancer, this let's say that one of the this request goes to one of our brokers behind the load balancers. Now this broker will identify that how much of segments or how much of data that we have 24 hours requirement over here, that data needs to scan for last 24 hours. So broker will identify with the help of Zookeeper and coordinator that this particular requirement is spread across different segments. Granularity as hour. That means we have 1 hour of data in each segment. So this one single query that broker receives will be queries, each query corresponding to one single segment, right? Now, one of the queries will go to our real-time segment, that current hour that is going on. And this real-time segment is what? This will be inside our peon. So peons are what? Peons are tasks that we configure that during an in Druid, we define that how many tasks that you want to initiate. So these are the JVM processes that will actually be initialized. We'll keep on running till a task duration that we have configured. And once this task duration is over, the data that it has collected from the so this data will move to our historical segments via deep storage. That means this peon will transfer data to deep storage, then it will be pushed to historical terminated, and a new peon will get launched. So this is stored in Druid, and okay, so one of the queries will go to our real-time segments, and it will get response back from it, and the rest 23 queries will go to the remaining historical segments, and those will also be collected to that we have in our brokers, and it will be accumulated there. Means our broker buffers will accumulate all the data and will create the response out of it, and this response will be returned to our Dash system, and Dash will return this response to Risk Rule Engine to further decide whether user or not. So this is how this entire thing works, and this is the type of system nodes that we are currently using. So our broker system is of type C5-4x large, and data are of type C5-9x large because of our requirement. And the type of queries that we use in Druid for is like scan kind of queries, where requirement might be like whether a user has made any deposit amount XRs, or one may ask that how much bonus has been released and what type of bonus, whether it was a cash bonus or points bonus within the last XRs. And it could be finding commonality between users, like one player, how many games have been played between percentage of win user one wins when it's playing with user. So they both of them might be colluding in the game. So this kind of requirement that we get on that. Okay. The results. So this is the plot that we see, that the number of requests that we receive on daily basis. So this is a plot for last 7 days. This is something that, I'll read it out for you. This is something between 25,000 to 30,000 requests at any minute in a day. We receive something like 25,000 to 30,000 requests per minute, and the response time varies. The maximum sometimes you can see sometimes it goes to 50,000 to 60,000 milliseconds. That means even something near average. Mostly our response time is within 700 to 400 milliseconds. That's what we can say. So this is why this is quite sufficient that we are quite happy that we have. And these are the stats from the broker load balancers. And internally, what Druid records from Druid, what we can see is that our response is within 500 range of 500 milliseconds mostly. And this is the number of requests that Druid brokers are constantly requesting. These are the number of requests that 200 requests per second, that on an average 200 to 250 requests on an average per broker. Okay. So is decided or that we are looking for in future with Druid. So we are now comfortable with Druid. We have implemented this Druid, but on instances. So every we end up what we are looking at is that how containerization, how Dockerization of Druid can help us, how this can benefit us, and we are still in process of doing this. And the next thing is that is actually very expensive. So if you are joining two data sources, so that query might be very expensive for Druid. It will take a lot of resources for that computation. So the better approach would be to join that two data sources by some other means, maybe in streaming jobs or something, and write that output to a Kafka, and then consume that pre-joined data in Druid, and then run your query on top of that denormalized data. So as we have seen that requirements for join, where multiple join queries has to be processed. So what we are going through is that how we can auto denormalize based on the requirements submitted to DAS, based on the requirements, whether we can auto denormalize the data and then consume only the denormalized data in Druid. Next thing is with growing number of use cases, we definitely want to go for multi-tenancy approach. That means on a single cluster, we will try to fit without affecting any of our SLAs. So this is what we are looking into, how we can achieve multi-tenancy. And next is prioritization and laning. So this is currently not a very high prioritized thing for us, because currently what and most of the queries in real time are already highly prioritized. So with growing number of use cases, when we will be dealing with something like dashboard kind of requirements, use cases, definitely this prioritization and laning will be helping us there. So all about what we have done with Druid at Games 24/7. So this all has helped us. Means we with the help of Druid, we were like, this was the exact requirement that we were looking for our product DAS. So we had gone through multiple data sources, means in-memory data sources and other data sources as well, but Druid exactly fit what we were looking for. And this has helped us not only means, though it was an iterative process, we had to go through you will have to tune your Druid very well according to your requirement, according to your use case. Tuning those number of threads and the buffer size is very crucial in Druid. But ultimately, when you achieve this, Druid is so well curated system, so well balanced and so much helpful that you can easily say that you are going to focus on what your business requirement is. So in our case, we are now extremely focused on how quickly that we have grown this system DAS, de facto of any upcoming use cases on our platform. And with the help of Druid, we are able to achieve to focus on the business requirements more. And similarly, the teams that are using DAS, because of the DAS as a platform, so they can also focus on their business requirements rather dealing with the pipelines approach that we had. So overall, this Druid has helped us a lot, and we'll be thankful to the Druid community. So thank you. Any questions?
Howdy, everybody. Thanks for that. Thanks for that awesome presentation, Kundan. My name's Charles, and I am a tech writer at Imply, and I'm going to be reading the questions from the chat. Feel free to add your questions to the Q&A. We have a couple from the general session chat first. Karthik asked, can you please explain how do you detect fraud when a fraud user does not withdraw an amount for a period of time but waits? So instead, like if there's a time lag.
True. So this is something like this is not exactly. I was just citing an example. So this is something internally. There is number of models that are working. So even if a fraud user withdraws after some time, there will be some patterns that he would be following, and these patterns would mark, or there could be linkages to this user. So what happens is that link can be linked to other users who were blocked from our platform. And what they do is they create new accounts to log in again or to come back to our systems. So what we do is we check their linkages if they are linked with some other accounts or not. With this data, along with the data, a verdict is made whether this could. And also, if this is the requirement, if these are the criteria that are met, so even the user waits. User means the player who is a fraud player. Even if they would be waiting, but they will be only allowed to withdraw only a certain amount if any suspicion is on that particular user. A chunk of amount means will be only allowed to withdraw from the wallet, not the entire amount. So I hope this gives you some idea about.
Thanks, Kundan. Shane has a question about what size are your data source and how many rows are ingested per day, and noted that 30,000 queries in 1 minute is amazing.
Thanks. So thing is, we in Druid, so Druid is having all of data are being ingested into Druid. Only the data that is related for fraud analysis is part of Druid. So something like clickstream is handled in other system, and something that is related to gameplay or something that is related to or withdrawal. So the things that are related to revenue, only these things are being handled in Druid. So I can say on an average in a day, we consume something around 20-25 GBs of data, compressed data in Druid. And also we have retention policy. That means we know that after certain days, maybe 7 days, this data would not be useful. So we have a retention policy that after 7 days, this data would be removed from historical servers, though this will be present on our deep storage.
Thank you. We have another question. Do you have more information on how you add new metrics or update metrics?
Yes. So if I understand it correctly, metrics like the metrics in DAS or metrics in so let's say that if adding a metric in DAS, so DAS is the platform where we data engineers have already pre-populated the logics. Like we have seen our historical requirements, and we know that these are the metrics, most commonly used metrics, like amount of game, or what is the number of games that a user has played, or what is the amount that has been deposited in certain period of time. So these are very common metrics that we have already pre-populated in our system DAS. If someone is trying to query a new kind of metrics, there is a self-serving model. They can create their own metrics depending on what event they want and what is the event, maybe count, maybe sum, on which dimension they want to apply. So all these filters and these dimensions would be available. And with that, the user can, our teams can create a new custom metric and would be shared across different teams, whoever is using DAS.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Personally, it's been interesting for me to just see this wonderful example of Druid in the real world, seeing as I write about it in general. We have just a few more minutes. If you have more questions, please do type them in the Q&A or the chat. We've been picking them up from there too. Maybe I'll ask one, seeing as I don't have any in the chat right now. Guys, doing any type of partitioning when you bring the data in from Druid? Druid.
Yes, so this is an interesting thought. Thing is that we rely on segmentation. Data is hourly segmented, and because the data requirement of ours is mostly around user IDs, so we know that whichever data point will be asked will be related somehow. User ID will be our input parameter. That is for sure. Now, knowing this, we know that Druid indexes on all the columns. So we know that having user ID there, it will be a very quick scan. So we are not using secondary partitioning, but only having an hourly segment, and we have also adjusted how much data should be in our real-time segment in memory, because we know that this would be our hot data. This will be constantly this is constantly data that would be queried, and then it moves to our historical server. So adjusting that amount of data that should be in memory, along with, we know that our query will be around this and the segmentation of hourly segmentation. So that has served us well. Maybe with more requirements coming in, we may consider secondary partitioning as well.
Thank you. That's interesting. Linda was asking a general question about Druid, about any updates to the data. Do you guys update the data at all?
Yes. So thing is, we are not having any Hadoop-based indexing process. We rely on the compaction process that comes with Druid straight out of the box. Why we are not updating that data? Because thing is, this is our analytical system, and we know that after instance of time, if we receive late data, that data is that stale data is not useful to us. So that will be part of other pipelines as well. Means we have our ETL jobs that are running, and that part will be handled in our ETL jobs. But over here, if beyond a certain interval of time, that data will and it is neglected out of the system.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for attending this. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.